Chicago Bears just released an official statement that rules out Chicago forever. This is not a rumor. This is not a leak. This is the franchise telling its own city that time is up. Right now, there are two destinations on the table. A legislative clock with 10 days left before it expires, and a governor from Indiana who already rolled out the red carpet. But while Kevin Warren decides the zip code of the monsters of the Midway, Ben Johnson has a far more urgent problem inside Hallis Hall. Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon, both starting cornerbacks, both on guaranteed money, both nowhere to be found at OTAs. Al Harris refused on the record to talk about Jalen. Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune confirmed Gordon is dealing with yet another soft tissue injury. If this defense shows up broken to week 1, the new stadium means absolutely nothing. And just when you thought you had the full picture, Antwan Randall dropped the number nobody wanted to hear. 43 drops recorded internally by the Bears staff in 2025. DJ Moore is gone, and Caleb Williams enters year 3 with an offensive line that still has no confirmed starter at 2 key positions, and with Rome Odunze carrying the weight of a receiver room that still has to prove it can actually catch the football. 3 decisions, 3 bombs, and an entire organization betting its next decade on the next 90 days. We start right now. I need you to sit down for a second, because this one is serious. On May 21st, 2026, the Chicago Bears released an official statement that basically says, Chicago, it's over. The city is no longer in the conversation. The franchise exhausted every opportunity to stay within city limits. And their statement was brutally direct. Quote, "There is not a viable site in the city," end quote. Think about that for a second. The Bears have played in Chicago since forever. Since the George Halas era, Da Bears, the lakefront, the November cold at Soldier Field with the wind cutting off Lake Michigan. That's identity. That's culture. And now they're telling us that era, as we know it, is over. 2 sites remain on the table. Arlington Heights, Illinois, about 25 miles northwest of Soldier Field. On 327 acres, where the Arlington Park horse racing track used to stand before Churchill Downs, sold it to the Bears organization back in 2023. And Hammond, Indiana, near Wolf Lake, also about 25 miles from Soldier Field, but across the state line. And that's where the real drama lives, fam. Indiana came in aggressive. Governor Mike Braun signed a bill back in February creating the Northwest Indiana Stadium Authority to oversee land acquisition, financing, and lease agreements. The deal they're offering is basically every franchise owner's dream. The Bears take on the construction debt, but they pay 0 property taxes on the stadium. 0. It gets funded through a 12% ticket tax, innkeeper's taxes, and regional food and beverage taxes. Braun even went on X saying, Indiana is open for business. That man rolled out the red carpet. On the Illinois side, state legislators have only until May 31st to pass a bill that would allow the Bears to negotiate their property taxes directly with local municipalities in Arlington Heights, rather than paying an annual rate based on assessed value. 10 days. 10 days to keep the Bears in Illinois. Governor Pritzker said at a press conference that they expect to see something before the 31st, but he also said, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson has no plan to retain the team. No plan at all. Bro, the mayor of the city that literally gives this franchise its name has no plan. That's something. Now let's put this in real perspective, because this isn't just about nostalgia. The new stadium at either site would cost around $5 billion. It would be domed, meaning the Bears could host a Super Bowl. They could have concerts, year-round events, the kind of mixed-use district that turns a franchise into a billion-dollar-per-year business. That's what Kevin Warren is building. That's the future of this organization. The question you have to ask yourself as a fan is simple. Does the zip code matter more than the team? Because if the Bears go to Arlington Heights, they're still the Bears. If they go to Hammond, they're still the Bears. The history. Number 1, Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, all of it comes with them. What changes is the train ride. What changes is whether you can still say your team plays in Chicago. And look, I'm not gonna lie to you. There's something that stings about this. Soldier Field with all its ridiculous columns, the bone-chilling cold, the lake in the background. That's part of the identity. Losing that is real, but it's also real that Soldier Field has run its course. The new project pushes the Bears into the next generation. Illinois has 10 days. The clock is running. And if legislators don't act, Hammond, Indiana could become the most unlikely and most controversial home in Da Bears history. Drop a comment below. Arlington Heights or Hammond? Or does it not matter as long as they're still the Bears? All right, now let's get to the field. Because while the stadium debate is burning, there's a situation at Hallis Hall that Ben Johnson is not sleeping on, and he shouldn't be. Jaylon Johnson and Kyler Gordon, both starting cornerbacks for the Bears, both signed rich contract extensions, and both are starting the 2026 offseason program in the exact same position as last year, off the field. Let's recap. Jaylon Johnson missed the entire summer of 2025 with a groin injury. He made it to week 2 of the regular season, then landed on injured reserve with another groin injury that required surgery. He missed 10 games. He came back in week 13, clearly not at 100%, and you could see it in his play. This man is a Pro Bowl caliber corner, one of the best in the NFL when healthy. And yet, his body has let him down 2 years in a row. Kyler Gordon is a different story, but equally concerning. He signed a 3-year, $40 million extension last offseason. He played 3 games. He started 1, groin injury, calf injury. And right now, according to Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune, Gordon is dealing with yet another soft tissue injury during May OTAs. Again, Ben Johnson said something back in March that sounded less like concern and more like a warning. He said the coaching staff had a hard time building a relationship with Jaylon and Kyler because they were simply never available. Quote, "We're starting over completely this spring," end quote. That's coach speak for, fellas, you need to show up. And Jaylon hasn't even shown up at Hallis Hall this spring. When defensive backs coach Al Harris spoke with Adam Hogue at CHGO Sports, he flat out refused to talk about Johnson. He said, quote, "Let me do this. We're going to talk about the guys that's just been out there. To respect Jaylon and the organization, we're just going to talk about the guys that's been out there," end quote. That's a coach respecting his player, yes, but it's also a signal that something isn't right. Now the contract context, Jaylon is locked in at $13 million with a $2 million roster bonus in 2027. If he plays well this season, the cornerback market has exploded since he signed his extension in March 2024, and he'd be in line for a second deal. If he doesn't perform, the Bears have a clear exit path. It's that simple. And this matters enormously on the tactical side. The Bears already have question marks on their pass rush. The 2026 defense needs the secondary to be elite for any front four pressure to translate into real plays. If Johnson and Gordon arrive at training camp at 50%, or if either one of them ends up on IR again, y'all don't understand. We're talking about a defense that could get carved up by mobile quarterbacks and well-coordinated passing systems. Harris said he has no doubt that when Jaylon is fully healthy, they'll get what they need to see. Listen, I trust Al Harris, but trust doesn't win first downs. Bodies do. And right now, the 2 bodies we need most on that defense are conspicuously absent. The sliver of optimism here is that May OTAs are voluntary. June is when mandatory minicamp kicks in. That's when we'll know if Jaylon Johnson got the message. That's when this whole conversation either calms down or blows up. And speaking of building from the field up, because that's the work, there are 2 internal battles at Hallis Hall right now that are going to define how much Caleb Williams can grow in year 3. First, left tackle. The Bears have 3 guys competing for that spot. Jedrick Wills Jr., who signed a 1-year deal in March, Braxton Jones, who re-signed also on a 1-year deal, and Theo Benedette, the long-term project. Offensive line coach Dan Rauscher was straight up about what he's looking for: consistency. Rep after rep, day after day. No names, no ego. Best man in practice wins the job. Look, I could be wrong on this, but Benedette feels like the guy with the highest ceiling long-term. Wills has the injury history you have to account for. And Jones is intriguing as a project, but needs time. The reality is, none of the three walks in as an obvious answer, and Caleb Williams needs someone to win that battle fast. At center, Garrett Bradbury holds the edge thanks to NFL experience, but here's the surprise. Luke Newman is in the conversation. Rauscher mentioned him unprompted, without anyone even asking the question. That says something. Newman had a strong offseason, and they're working him at center. He's not the favorite, but he's not out of it either. Second, the receiver room. Here's the quote of the day from receivers coach Antoine Randall L. Quote, PFF had us at 29 drops. We really had 43 according to our standard, end quote. 43. That's not bad luck. That's a technique problem, a concentration problem. Eyes off the ball, trying to run before actually securing the catch. And the problem gets more complicated because DJ Moore's gone. Traded to Buffalo. Moore was the most dependable receiver on this team. The veteran presence that created space and made plays when the offense needed them most. There's no direct replacement. Randall L. admitted it straight up. They can't replace him. That's why Rome Odunze has to step up. Year 3. Caleb Williams in year 3 too. If this duo doesn't break out productively in 2026, the questions are going to get real uncomfortable real fast. Odunze doesn't have to be the loudest voice in the room. The Bears have Caliph Raymond and Scotty Miller for veteran leadership. But on the field, he has to be the number one threat. And Randall L. already put the league on notice. At least one more veteran receiver is on the way to Hollis Hall. They're sitting at 10 wide receivers, and they need to add someone with experience. That addition could be the piece that gives stability to the room while the young guys develop. The full picture is this. Caleb Williams in year 3, an offensive line still unsettled at 2 key spots. No DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze as the primary hope. Ben Johnson has the scheme, Caleb has the talent, but blocks and catches matter just as much as play design. Look, it's May of 2026 and we've already got drama at an epic level. A franchise without a home, a secondary hanging in the balance, a receiver room that has to reinvent itself. But you know what? This is the Bears we love. Never boring, never easy, always on the edge. The clock is running for Illinois. The countdown to training camp is running for Jalon and Kyler. And the hype around Caleb in this offense is not stopping. This is the year, fam. We have the coach, we have the quarterback, we have the energy. We just need everything to fall into place. If you made it this far, you already know what to do. Drop a like, leave a comment below telling me where you think the Bears will be playing in 2030, and subscribe if you want Bears news every single day. Bear down.